I want to come out and say that I do not support George Floyd and the media depiction of him as a martyr for Black America. Shelby Steele said that the Black community is unique from other communities. Our culture is unique from other communities because we are the only community that caters to the bottom denominator of our society. Now, let me explain what that means. It means to say that not every Black American is a criminal, not every Black American is committing crimes, but we are unique in that we are the only people that fight and scream and demand support and justice for the people in our community that are up to no good.
I don't really even say her name because she's so out there and so like anti-black. But just hearing that, basically saying like because of who George Floyd was in his personal life prior to the incident, that we should not support him after he was unjustifiably killed by police. What do you think?
That's like asinine. Like just because he lived a certain lifestyle before being lynched on pretty much basically national television for all of us to see it, that doesn't justify any support or like feelings for him. Like that just doesn't like that's sick. Like how do you
Yeah, for me,
like like it's
when it
like, I
comes
don't
to
know like
her, go ahead, go ahead.
it's like I don't like her at all because I feel like she does talk out both sides of her mouth and she's too educated to a standpoint where she can like in a way like brainwash people into thinking and getting her and siding with her on thoughts or certain standpoints. So that scares me alone. And then they throw this whole, the George Floyd incident with it. It's like this is why we react the way we do in this country when things happen to us like that. It's because people like her who have the ability and are that educated, they just don't take the time to really understand why we react and why we feel a certain way about these issues that come up.
Right. And I think I put a status about her like maybe a month or two ago and saying like she's so dangerous because she is so intelligent. She knows her history and she has
Mm-hmm.
facts. And once you have that knowledge, then you can easily manipulate those facts to make them look a certain way and confuse people who aren't as smart as you and don't have the knowledge that you have. So she's very dangerous. But like I said, I don't like to talk about her too much. But
Mm-hmm.
I think it's crazy that she says that because of the lifestyle that somebody lived prior to, they're not deserving of justice. And I think if I played the clip more, she would go on to say, like, we shouldn't have made George Floyd a martyr. But George Floyd didn't ask to be killed. He didn't go out there and say, I'm going to get killed today so that I can be the face of some type of movement in the black community.
Yeah, very rarely anybody asks to be killed to be the face of any kind of movement.
Right,
Movement or no movement, nobody, I feel like people don't ask to be killed.
right. Definitely not. So to even be trying to portray him as someone who was trying to do something like that and be somebody in a certain way. No, he lost his life unjustifiably. He didn't want to lose his life. So
And
I just
definitely
hate the way
not
it's
in that
framed.
fashion. Like,
Right. I hate the way it's framed. But let's move back a little bit. Let's start from the beginning. When you first saw the clip of him with the knee on his neck for 8 minutes or however long it was, what was your initial reaction, initial feelings to that?
I almost threw up when I first saw it. Um, and like I have this weird sense and like when I was first we're home during COVID, the whole shutdown. So, your mind is racing about everything in the world. Your mind is racing about your friends, your family, everything. I had a baby girl on the way. But you're just constantly thinking about it. So your whole being is being in the house and your own social media. You're scrolling through Facebook, your Snapchat, your Twitter, your Instagram, And then you kind of see like this wave of 10, 20 posts of this particular incident, and you're just like, you're kind of, at least for me, I was kind of like taken back for a second, and then I had to like rewatch it 2 or 3 times to really grasp what was going on. And I remember feeling like I had to throw up that very first. I had the biggest lump in my throat watching that whole thing, and I couldn't get myself to stop watching it because a part of me had this hope of like he was going to get up and try to fight for his life at some point. But when you just see his body go limp and you just see the life come out of him, and you know it's not coming, but you just feel like something's gonna happen to where he's gonna be okay, and he just never gets up off the ground. And the video is 8 minutes and was it 20 or 46 seconds or something like that. But then there was other video where it went longer, and you just see him after the cop does get off, he's just laying there and nobody seems to be like tending to him. And that just, it shook me, it shook my wife, it shook everybody I knew around me, and it shook the country, it shook the world. Because to see that play out, like I said, on basically national television, because everybody has a cell phone, everybody has video capability and recording this and broadcasting it practically live, it was probably the closest thing I've gotten to like witnessing a murder like firsthand. Yeah, I don't know.
So for me, I was kind of on the complete opposite side of the spectrum. You said that you watched it over and over. To this day, I haven't watched the full video all the way through once, because I'm to a point where it's like, I don't know if I can take seeing another man killed in front of my face, whether you actually literally see him die in that moment or you even see the process that's leading up to it. Like, it's been so much trauma over these past couple years that I'm like at a breaking point. Like, I don't know which next killing is just going to take me to a point where I don't even know what the outcome is, but just not being able to function, I don't know, for a day, to go to work and just be a zombie because I just can't do it anymore.
It was definitely somber around this, like in my house that day, the next day, the days after that, because you watch it on your phone and you see everything play out, and then I immediately turn to CNN, and then you see the coverage, you see the riots, you see the chaos just happening, and you're like this is the country I live in. It was already chaotic before then, and then you throw this on top of it in the middle of a pandemic, and it's just like you just don't know where to turn. And you, like me, of course, like I don't want to watch it, but a part of me was just like glued to it so much that I couldn't turn myself away from it, and I ended up watching it a second and third time just to try to trick my mind into not believing that this is happening and playing out on, in the landscape of live television at that point. Like, it's just.
Yeah, so that was going to be like my next question to that. To a certain extent, we experienced that trauma in the same way, but we took very different approaches to it. So you wanted to watch it over and over because it was almost unreal to you, you're saying?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I would never, of course you're in school and you hear about, the lynchings and unjustified killings that to our Black people and prominent Black people throughout our history, right? Through our textbooks and history lessons all through school. But like, it's way different from hearing about it and reading about it in these textbooks and from what your teacher's telling to actually seeing it happen in real life, in present life, and you're just like, it took me to a whole nother place. Like, nah, this is like, I hear about people getting killed every day, but like, this is like, oh, the modern day lynching, and this was the one that you hear about, that you did hear about in your text, was, and just like, nah, like, it was sick. Like, it was sickening. Like, I can't even find the words to describe other than that right now. But I just, like I said previously, like, I was like so glued to it because it's just like, it's unreal. This feeling and watching this play out, like, it's just, I don't know.
So the last time we talked about Trayvon and his killing, and I think we said we were 22 when that happened. You were talking about
Yeah,
the
like
reaction you had at
22.
that age. Yeah. So what was different in terms of your feelings, your thought process, seeing this after you've seen like every year people getting killed, as opposed to Trayvon, which was kind of for us the first big one? What's the difference in how you took it?
I think the difference then was just like, I was in two. Like I said in the previous discussion, I was in Maine at the time when Trayvon Martin happened, and I was one of the only blacks on campus. So that, those feelings were more geared towards trying to like suppress and like protect my feelings, because I didn't know how to react amongst that demographic being in school. But this one, like I said, during a pandemic, when we are home and have the time to be on social media all day if you choose to, and watch television and news stations, all day, every day. During that time while we were shut down, I think this one hit a lot harder because it was happening live. Whereas the Trayvon Martin, we heard about it and then we were like brought up to speed as far as what was happening. The George Floyd thing happened live right in front of us, and things were happening at present speed. You find out that he's a father, he has a baby girl. That drew similarity. I became a father and I have a daughter. So the fact that you see this happening, I just can't get away from it. You see this happening live to this person, regardless of what his lifestyle was before. You just see this man losing his life second by second. And then you hear the backstory that, he was a father of a baby girl. And that just drew similarity to me because that's what I am currently, and was preparing myself for. And then you put yourself in that place, like, well, damn, like that could be me. That could have been me.
Yeah, very true. I think for me, the biggest difference is the expectation, I guess, a little bit of naivety back when we were a little younger.
Mm-hmm.
That being the first one and seeing Trayvon and being like, okay, we got the facts out there. We know what Zimmerman did. We know that he murdered him. He's going to jail for sure. And then now, kind of going into every situation being a lot more pessimistic. Like, they're going to find a way to allow these officers to get off. And I think over the past 8 or 9, how many ever years it's been, slowly mentally I've kind of come to a place where my expectations are so low for the justice system and for what we're going to get out of situations like this. And even in situations where clear cut like this, I still kind of expect the worst.
And I totally agree. And I said it then when I was watching it. I was like, he's going to get off. He's going to find a way to get off. And then you find out there was 3 other cops standing around. I'm like, they're going to get off too. And it's going to be another case where the black man in America is going to get ran through the mud through the media. He was this, he was that. He shouldn't have paid with counterfeit money, whatever the case may be. Nobody has the right or should lose their life, period, or in that manner that he did, regardless of race, color, height, size. It doesn't matter. And you just know, like you said, in the back of your head, you're just really pessimistic about it. And I said it then. I was like, he's gonna get off. They're gonna find a way out of this, from under this, and not get anything done to him. And you find out that they arrested him, but that took some time to play out. And then he gets released on bond, and you don't hear anything. I haven't heard anything about it since.
Yeah, I don't even know where it's at in the process at this point. But
Um,
going back to something you said earlier, just about how the magnitude of everything that happened after he was killed. I think the protests that we saw worldwide after that is something that was bigger than we've ever seen for any other person that was killed. So what do you think the reasoning was for that? Is it because we saw him with the knee on his neck for 8 minutes? Is it that everybody's home and everybody cares because there's nothing else going on to take our attention away from it? Is it a pandemic? Or is it because it's on the heels of 2 other killings because Breonna Taylor was already in the news, Ahmaud Arbery was already in the news. Like, what was it that made this the one that
I think
set
it was
the world on fire?
I think it was a combination of all three, and people were just fed up at that point. Not that they was fed up before, but when you have practically no distractions, because there's nothing going on because everything's shut down. So you are home. You have the time to, like I said, watch TV, scroll on your phone, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. On the heels of Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and everybody has the time, and it's playing out in front of you, and people are just like, "No, we can't go for this anymore." And that's all three definitely played a part. They each had their own part in why we saw such a widespread and a huge turnout as far as protests and even the rioting. I didn't see rioting happening coming out of it. I thought it was going to be another, protesting where people have protest for a week or two, and it kind of dies down, fizzles out. But as the rioting started, I felt I was one that kind of agreed with it. Of course, the media is going to try to, play it a certain way too, where they say, "Oh, this group is involved in this, and this group's involved in that," and they try to chum it up to where it's being more of a negative thing than positive. But you feel like, at what point do people, like, how much more do you want people to just protest and peacefully protest when things aren't being, the playing field's not fair?
Right.
Like, I made a joke, but in another life or another setting, I feel like I'd probably be out there. I'll probably be one out there in the streets riding just as much too, breaking stuff and setting stuff on fire, because everybody has a breaking point, and you get that many people with nothing else to do but watch the news and see this incident play out how it did. So they have to release and have an outlet somewhere, and that's what it was.
Yeah, I definitely agree. As far as just people being out there and being willing, for a lot of people, there's no reason not to. For me, for people that lost their job, let's say, or people that don't have to go to work in the morning anymore because they're working from home or whatever, like, prior to this, is like, I would love to be a part of that, but I can't really risk going out there because I got to wake up in the morning, or I don't want to lose my job. But now people got so much time on their hands and are already fed up because of the situation with the pandemic. They're like, okay, I'm going to finally go out there and do my part and be a part of this change. And I agree with you as well as far as the rioting and the looting to a certain extent. I can't be mad at people who are fed up after years and years and years of just watching our brothers and sisters being killed in the streets. And in most cases, there being no consequence. So it made perfect sense to me. It was the perfect storm, the perfect time for this type of stuff to happen.
Oh yeah, like 100%. Like, either, like, we had a protest downtown New Haven.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember saying to my wife, I was like, I'm going to go on a protest Friday. She was like, no, you're not. Like, you're not going. I'm like, nah, but I want to go because you have nothing else to do, but you feel like you need to do something and be a part of something because you just are fed up of what's going on to your brothers and sisters, your black brothers and sisters in this country. And granted, it happened in Minnesota and we're in Connecticut, but we all come together and we got to stick together and fight as one, and you want to do something. But then, like you said, you got to think about it. I thought about it. I'm like, well, yeah, I get out there, something happens, something stupid. I could lose my job, now put my family in jeopardy. And you don't want to, cause that. So it's definitely, changed my thoughts about it, but you definitely are like itching at the bits to like want to get out there and do something. Necessarily, I probably wouldn't be rioting and looting, but you just feel like you got to do something.
Yeah, and even the magnitude here, now that I think about it, back in, I forget what year it was, 2016, 2017 maybe, when Alton Sterling and Philando Castillo had got killed back to back, they had protests here in New Haven, and I was there, and like, it was a good-sized crowd. They just walked up and down, I forget what street it is, up towards where the iPhone store is and all that stuff. But
Broadway.
I'm watching the protest this year, and I'm like, oh, it's a way more y'all now. Y'all on the highway. Y'all shutting down the highway now. Like, this is at a whole nother level. People are fed up in a whole nother level, and it's understandable.
Like, truly understandable. And then I had a couple of coworkers like, oh, what, like, why are they on the highway? Why are they doing, why are they protesting and blocking the streets? I'm like, look, I was like, listen, like, you got to realize, like, what the trauma that we've been through. Like, the fact that we're on the highway and stopping traffic in the middle of the street and holding you up for a split second or a minute or a couple minutes, that's inconvenience you for just that 10, 15 minutes. We've been inconvenienced our whole lives. Like, the slightest thing that we do, it's always an inconvenience. And we are the ones that get beaten and punished and killed, where you guys, for a majority, get away scot-free. So the fact that we only taking up 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, maybe of your time, just because you want to get down 95 real quick, you're just going to have to take that L for that day, because we've been dealing with this for years. So 20 minutes of your time should not be an issue.
Exactly.
And a lot of they're like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. Yeah, it's a lot of things that you don't think about because you have that privilege. You don't have to. We got to think about everything, the slightest movement, the slightest eye roll, the slightest bulge in your pocket, whether it's your phone or a brush or a wallet. Like, you got to think about every little detail before you walk out your door of your house and get in your car, or walk into a store or leaving a store. Like, it's all these details that we got to think about.
It's crazy. So I'm gonna play another quick clip. Let me see if the volume is good.
He's not responsive right now, bro. You're definitely a bum, bro.
Tell me what it is. Tell me what his pulse is right now.
Check the pulse.
The fact that you guys are checking his pulse and doing compressions if he needs them, you guys are on another level.
So that was a clip of the people that were standing there filming it as it happened, which got me to thinking, and I've thought about this before, like, if I'm someone that's standing there watching it happen, what would I do? Like, have you ever thought about that and like what you would do in that situation? Because if you try to intervene, it might be you that's next. But if you don't, then you kind of got to live with that guilt of not stepping in while somebody is getting killed for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm. So I was very upset with the ones that were standing around and filming. When I saw the video and you see the people standing around, pretty much forming like a circle around the car and the cop kneeling on his neck. I was very, very upset. And part of why I was very upset, because if I remember correctly, there were a couple of black men that were standing around. And I'll be careful with how I say this though, but I can see why there were some black men that may have not intervened due to previous experiences of trying to intervene and being killed or hurt in a manner while trying to help their brother or sister. But I feel like because we've dealt with all those experiences and traumas, I felt like that would be a reason to want to intervene and not let this happen again. Because not only like if you intervene, it's not only it's like just trying to be really careful. I say like
It's a tough situation.
it's a very tough situation, but I just like I said, like I just feel like because we've dealt with so much trauma, like I just feel like I would have tried to do something, run in, push it, because looking at the video, some of them were standing behind the cop and the other cops were on the other side. So you can make a run for it and try to push the cop off and try to, help in that situation.
Very
but
dangerous.
It's very, very dangerous. But I feel like to not have that guilt, I would have tried to do something. But then again, it's hard for me to say that because I'm not in that moment right then and there.
Right.
So that's why I'm trying to be careful. But like, yes, I was very upset in that everybody was quick to pull out their phones and record, but nobody was quick to help. But then you also got to put yourself in their shoes, especially the black men who were sitting around. Like, nah, I've seen this movie play out before. I don't want it to be me. I don't want it to be him either. But it's very dangerous. It's a very hard thing to try to like deal with.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough situation to be in. I think filming is definitely important because without that film, who knows what'll happen? That story might have never got out.
Right.
It might have got swept under the rug. The police cover it up however they want to cover it up. But once again, it's something I had to really think about because for me, in that moment, adrenaline rushing, I might be like, yeah, let me step in. But then I also got to think about, well, what would my wife want me to do? Because if something happens to me, what does she have? So it's such a tough situation to be in, especially as a black man, because you don't want to see another black man being killed and you're watching it before your eyes, but you also don't want to be that black man. I'd rather not be the hero that got killed. I don't. It's
all right. I'm gonna clarify. I'm gonna say
celebrated for that.
But I'm gonna clarify and say initially I was very upset at people standing around, especially the black men.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, but then when you do break it down and think about it, putting like you said, thinking about what my wife and what my mother and my sisters, you think about them, you're like, well, if I put myself in that position, I'm putting them in a predicament where they're lost a loved one and a provider and protector, and they don't have that. You know what I mean? So I'm definitely gonna like clarify that. Even though like was very upset. Like you said, if without the video, it probably would never got out and probably get swept under the rug. But when you see just the amount of people recording, like the idea of, all right, let me record too, I feel like that was maybe, we don't need everybody to record. Maybe it don't take one person, maybe a couple people. Like you just don't, I don't know.
Yeah, and in the clip, I know you couldn't see it, you could hear it, but the people, it was like one or two people recorded, and everybody else was like directly talking to the cops, like, get off of him, like, are you checking his post? Is he alive? Look at him, he's not. So, I mean, people were saying things, but nothing was physically being done. And
yeah,
I don't know, it's a really tough situation.
It really is.
What I would do. I can't say one way or another what I would do if I was put in that spot at that moment. No,
because you definitely you get stuck, and maybe that's what it was, and maybe they just got stuck and just didn't know what to do, so they felt like, let me just stay out of it. But you definitely get that guilt feeling of like damn, maybe I could have helped and did something and saved his life. It could cause harm to my life, and but maybe you just don't know. It was definitely, yeah. That's a toughie. That's definitely a toughie.
So let's end with this last question. We touched on it before. We're talking about what we have seen in the past as far as convictions and all that stuff. So given the circumstances, given what we see in the evidence, how do you think the story ends for the cops that committed this crime?
You want to say that they're convicted and charged and put away, but I just don't think that's the case.
I guess every time it's like, how can they get away with it? Like, how can you get away with sitting on somebody's neck, putting your knee to somebody's neck for 8+ minutes? But it seems like there's always a what? There's always some justification.
Always, and that's why I feel like I don't think that anything is going to come of it, because I'm sure I've never been a police officer. I never strived or thought about being a police officer, but I feel like there's nothing in the training book that says you need to put a knee on somebody's neck for 8 minutes or however long. I feel like there's other ways. Like, I work with children with very aggressive behaviors. Nowhere in my training and safety management procedures does it say to put your knee anywhere on somebody's body. There's other ways to restrain and get somebody on the ground and do it a safe way. And clearly that wasn't safe, but there's, like you said, there's always going to be something that's going to be justified to an extent, to a point where it's going to be enough for them to get off and not face any kind of penalty.
Right, and that's a good point you made. It's almost as if they're held to a standard that average people, I don't want to say average because I don't want to say average in terms of you, but your job, like, you're forced to de-escalate stuff and get kids into a certain space safely without doing the stuff that these cops are doing that are literally killing people. How is it that you, as someone who works in that environment, can keep things safe by yourself sometimes, and there's 4 officers out there trying to deal with this one person, no weapons, and they are forced to use that type of tactic? It makes no sense to me.
It really doesn't. And I think of all the times I had to restrain and de-escalate situations where I'm by myself, where it's maybe me and the only student in the room, or sometimes there's a time where it's me and 2 students. One was being aggressive, one wasn't, but you have to keep both of them safe, regardless of who's being aggressive or not. And you gotta manage it. And those are, granted, there's nobody, I don't work in an environment where we have to worry about weapons and guns or anything like that, but it's still very high stressful moments. You still don't want anybody to get hurt. You still don't want to get hurt. You want to keep everybody safe as much as possible and not have to use physical force to de-escalate. But it seems like that's their go-to right off the bat, and it always ends up bad for us.
Very, very true.
And it doesn't need to be like that. Like, there definitely has to be some kind of reform and training in how to de-escalate situations without using force. It's done. I do it every day.
Right.
I don't feel like I don't understand how, like, we get this intensive training and they don't. They just kind of just like it's on the back page of something and they just like brush over it, and it's like, all right, we'll send you out here. Here you go.
Right, and that's another topic for another day, but that's what gets lost in the conversation about defunding the police. Like, when we say that, we're not talking about just taking all of the money. We're talking about taking money and reallocating it for stuff like that to get better training so that you can handle these situations better and people are not ending up dead because you didn't know how to handle a situation or you panicked or whatever.
Right.
But it's just sad to be in a space where you have to be relegated to the idea that this is probably not going to turn out well. This is probably not going to end up with justice, but it's kind of just where we are at this point in America.
Like, it's really sad. It's been months. The Breonna Taylor case, that case has been dragging its feet.
Yeah, definitely gonna talk about
My
that at some point.
my RB, we didn't find out for what 3-4 months after that. So like that's just what they think about us and how they feel about us, which is why the way we react, but like that. But when we do react, then we're supposed to check ourselves, whereas they're not checking themselves. So, like I said, I hope for something to happen where we could turn the tide a little bit, but so that day comes, it's just like a waiting game.
Very true. What we could do is hope for the best, do our part, protest, get out there, make our grievances known, talk to our politicians and things like that. But hopefully things will get better soon.